What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Garrett here at Born to be Rad, and this is Rad Recommendations episode 5. Now, my guest today is somebody that I've done a lot of work with on YouTube. Actually, he's one of the people that really got me to branch out and to start this thing up. So super big supporter of him, super big supporter of me. I've been watching this guy and listening to this guy for years and years and years. So, yeah, so we're going to hype him up right now. We've got CK himself, Mr. West from deadpit.com. Man, welcome to the show.
Awesome to be here. I like I said before we started, I don't know how to act because I'm normally the host on everything. So steer the ship, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm giving you a little break today, man, because you're always hosting. So you're hosting your shows, you're hosting when you have guests on. So, so what we decided to do today, so again, if you guys have not checked out any of these recommendation videos, make sure to go back and check them out, on my YouTube here. This is episode 5. Usually what I like to do is I grab somebody from the movie horror community, like-minded people, really bring them together. And we do almost kind of like a guest type of show here where we discuss a movie that both of us really, really enjoy that maybe just doesn't get talked about all the time. And what we try to do is we just basically talk about it, try to convince you guys to check it out, especially if it's one you haven't seen or maybe haven't seen in a while. And then we also like to kind of talk shop with the chat here. So if you are checking this out, feel free to jump in the chat and say hi. It makes life a lot easier. We can kind of get you included in the show, and that helps as well. So really quick before we start, the movie we are going to talk about today is 1986. Is that correct? 86?
86.
86. Yes, Flight of the Navigator. So if you watched my last video talking about movies that basically I grew up with, and this was on the list. This was a movie that I saw at a very, very young age. It's probably one of the first, movies I have a lot of recollection watching that actually had an effect on me. And this was on a VHS tape that my mom taped off television. I'm not sure if it was like, Disney sometimes would do like those Sunday night movies or whatever. I'm not sure if that's where it came from, but it was one that we had, taped off TV forever. And my brother and I, watched this thing quite a bit. So it definitely made my list. And then talking to you, you also were a big fan of this movie. And I said, all right, you know what? Now let's get this little recommendation video going and we'll chat about it in a little bit more depth and see what you guys have to say as well.
Yeah. I'm like you. This was one of those movies. There's like a handful of them that if I couldn't find something I didn't have cable until I was probably 10, 11 years old. So anything before that was a video store or it was on like, basic cable. And Flight of the Navigator was one of those movies that I bet I rented 10 times as a kid. It was one that I always gravitated to for some reason.
Now, how old do you think you were when you saw this? Because again, being 1986, I'm just kind of getting the time frame when I was born. And do you know? Again, I've seen this, but I didn't do any really research on it. This was a theatrical release, correct or no?
Yeah, from what I can tell, it was a theatrical release. I don't think it did very well in the theaters. It did better on home video. Yeah, and as far as the same weekend that came out, I don't know if you did any sort of research on this at all. Some interesting movies that came out. I think Howard the Duck came out the same weekend, and Friday the 13th Part 6. They both came out the same weekend Flight of the Navigator did. So they had some competition. I don't know if Howard the Duck probably bombed at the box office as well, I believe. So yeah, Friday the 13th probably destroyed both of those movies.
Go figure. But yeah, it's funny because Howard the Duck, that was another movie I watched quite a bit as a kid, but it was my neighbor was a big fan of it. So I think he had it on VHS and we used to watch it at his house. To me, like, again, with time frame and stuff, I kind of felt like I saw Howard the Duck way later than I saw this. So I was actually kind of surprised that these did come out at the exact same time. If you would have asked me just to take a wild guess, I would have assumed Howard the Duck was later, maybe like 88 or something like that. And this one being 86. So like I said, mine was taped off television. So then, taking who knows how long it went from theatrical to television where it was taped for me is I'm not sure how that time frame works. So, I could have probably been like 6 or 7 when I saw this for the first time.
Yeah, I'm thinking like when we had a VCR, I think it was around 87 or so. So yeah, I was probably 7 or 8 years old the first time I saw this movie. Believe it or not, as a kid, I didn't really watch a whole lot of Walt Disney movies. That just wasn't my thing. I mean, there's a few, there's always, a handful, but yeah, this was definitely one that as a kid, I watched numerous times over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Chris V in the chat says, howdy fellas. What's up, man?
Howdy.
So what's interesting too, is you kind of went into, you didn't watch a lot of Disney movies as a kid. I definitely did. I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of kids around my age. And, it was kind of cool in a way because everybody kind of had certain movies and VHS tapes that the other kids didn't have. So every time we all got together and went to each other's house, there was always like those select few movies that you knew, like, hey, this person has this, let's watch it again. And, my neighbor had a lot of Disney movies. So I was really, I watched a lot of them as a kid, mostly the cartoon ones. But you know what? There were a handful of Disney movies that weren't animated, such as this one that, are really, really good. Even to this day, I've been looking up a movie that I haven't seen actually that, us talking about this and me recently talking about it in my video, I went back and checked out. Have you seen the Disney movie Black Hole? You ever seen that?
I don't believe so. I know which one you're talking about though, but I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, I was kind of looking around for other movies around the 80s and, that Disney put out that weren't animated, and Black Hole came up, and I watched the trailer on YouTube, and it had like Anthony Perkins in it, and it was like a sci-fi alien type movie, and it actually looked pretty neat, and I had never seen it before. So I was just curious on your thoughts on it, because a part of me was like, oh, maybe I should hunt this down, or maybe it's on Disney Plus. I don't know, but it was something that I'm like, maybe I'll check this one out, because I did like Flight of the Navigator so much. And even still, for me, it's still hard to believe that this was a Disney movie. This was put out by Disney. For me, it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up some information on the movie today while I was watching it. And oddly enough, Disney picked up distribution rights for the movie only in North America. So originally it was an independent movie. Which explains a lot. I mean, GD is said during Flight of the Navigator. I mean, that's just bizarre,
right,
for a Disney movie. So that makes a little bit more sense. And if you look at the, also a good way to tell too, in North America, the poster art Disney only used for the theatrical release. So overseas, they still use that on DVDs and whatever, VHS tapes. So this is the VHS for Flight of the Navigator. And that's I think that they kind of wanted to do something that looked more, like the 80s movie for kids or something like that. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff to talk about. Just the, behind the scenes stuff of Flight of the Navigator too.
Yeah. Now that was the VHS or the DVD that you just showed?
No, I've got the DVD too. I want to show that here in just a second. But
that is a very similar cover as well, right? Because actually, just showing mine, which this is a Blu-ray, but it's like a 4K scan. It was actually done, it was a limited edition done by Second Sight Films. So it's actually like a box set. It's pretty cool, but nowhere on here does it say Disney, which is funny because
well, in the UK it wasn't Disney. So
right.
It was
That's what's interesting about this movie is that, Disney put it out and distributed it, but they don't technically own it in other countries, which doesn't, maybe it's common for Disney, not that I'm aware of, but, I don't
think so. No, I mean, normally they want to outright own the whole thing. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they obviously own it indefinitely here in the United States, and they released it theatrically. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a typical Disney production. I mean, you can clearly tell it's definitely a fun '80s adventure, a little bit of sci-fi in there, but it's very unusual for that time frame. I mean, some of the story in it's kind of scary actually, and I think it's got a little bit of, I don't know if you would call it horror or not, but yeah, that was the sort of thing that I really liked as a kid about it. It was just really freaky in the first half hour of it or so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because that, I talk about that in my other videos slightly, is that as much as this was one of the movies that we went back to and watched a lot as a kid, my brother and I, a part of it was it was one of the first VHSs I remember we owned, like off TV. So we didn't have a lot to choose from at the time. So if we wanted to watch a movie, it was like we had a choice of like 3. So those 3 were always in the player. And we did always kind of find this one a little bit disturbing, like a little bit eerie, a little bit unsettling. It's got a pretty cool vibe, but it's a little bit odd because being a kid at 6 or 7 or 8 years old, seeing this for the first time and watching a kid basically crying in hysterics, with his parents being lost, like that scene of him going back to his house for the first time and the old lady answers. I mean, as a little kid, I thought right away that like this man and this woman were like evil and like they did something with the parents, like before you really start to understand what this is about. But even when I watched it not too long ago, when she answered the door, like it was kind of weird to me where she almost felt like the villain in a way because like his parents were gone. And it's just a really crazy story and gets you to think about, as a little kid, like what if I get lost, or what would happen if I opened my eyes and everybody was older and I was the same age? Like there is a lot of elements to it, like you said, that are, very unsettling, especially that first half when he's in the police station and they're trying to figure things out and he's getting all these tests done and, they don't know what's going on with his brain. And it's a little bit, it's him in the hospital, not being able to come home. Like there is definitely elements of this that, are still unsettling to me now. And I don't know if it just has to do with how I felt as a kid watching it for the first time.
No, I mean, I think the plot of the whole story behind it and everything is really original and pretty fresh for 1986. I mean, you got to think, I mean, there weren't a whole lot of shows or anything about alien abduction. This was, I think that Chris V mentioned here, the Fire in the Sky for kids,
right?
But that was really before that incident was that well known. I think. I mean, it was. It's definitely an original story.
The eeriness of the story, I think, is I guess what because Fire in the Sky is a movie that is super creepy and scary to me to this day. It just feels so realistic. But I think he's trying to say, as a kid watching Flight of the Navigator, you probably get those same feelings that an adult would get while watching Fire in the Sky, or a teenager, or whatever it may be. Ryan Justin's in here. He says, "What's up, guys? This movie is on my list to watch." Now, Justin, have you seen this before, or is this on your list to watch being brand new? I'm curious. But yeah, like you hit it on the head with just the tone of this movie being a little bit off, especially for a title that Disney is putting out. So
yeah, there were a couple of movies around that time that just had a bizarre, I don't know what it was, aura about them or whatever. There's another one that I often got these two confused as a young kid, because the kid in this, Joey Kramer, looks a lot like Henry Thomas, who was in E.T.
I knew you were going to say that. Are you going to say Quest or whatever, or no?
What was that? Yeah, the Quest is one. I get those confused.
Yeah.
And then Henry Thomas was in another one called The Cloak and Dagger, which is really underrated movie that I need to watch again, because I mean, I always love that movie, and it freaked me out as well when I was a kid.
Yeah, that movie is another one that I would love to do a show on. I mean, and what's funny is I don't know if this is something we want to talk about very soon, but there was recently a documentary on this movie that you can watch on Amazon Prime now on Flight of the Navigator. And as it was going, I did watch it, and I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, wow, what did this kid do? Because at the time, I thought that this kid was going to be a breakout star and was going to be somebody I was going to see all over the place. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh yeah, I think he was in Cloak and Dagger. Like I thought that in my head as I'm watching the documentary, and I've seen both of these movies so many times, but even to this day, I was trying to think of what else had he done after this movie. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, he was in Cloak and Dagger. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that wasn't him.
That was a different kid.
Right. Yeah. Like, so you're
right.
I
think a lot of that now, honestly, a lot of that has to do with this artwork because he looks exactly like Henry Thomas.
Right.
So I think that was how you got confused, I guess, as a kid.
Because like, again, it was around the same time frame when we probably saw both of E.T. and this as kids.
Yeah.
And it was about aliens and all this other stuff. So I think that's another reason why, we both got them very confused because, they came out around the same time and those kids kind of had a similar look. But yeah, Cloak and Dagger, if you don't, if anybody hasn't seen that, definitely watch it. That is another one that I think deserves an upgrade because I think it's only on DVD still. I own the DVD, but I don't have it on any other format. So I'm not sure if it has come out or not, but super underrated.
Who did the DVD of that, by the way? I've got it, but I'm thinking, was it Lionsgate that did the DVD of it?
I don't know. I don't know if it was like a very unknown company. I'm going to tell you what's funny is where I actually got that DVD. And I never saw Cloak and Dagger as a kid. I saw that later in life. Like I saw that when I was like in my early 20s. And it was around that time when hunting and collecting movies was like the thing that I did all the time. So I was working at a supermarket through college and stuff. And they used to have this bin in the front of the store every once in a while that they just dump movies inside. And I always would rummage through every now and then, and I found Cloak and Dagger in that bin, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen this. This looks pretty cool, and I bought it. And then when I watched it, I was like, man, this was a great movie. How did I miss this all those years? So I don't have the same effect as it being creepy to me as a kid, but man, it's still another movie. Like watching it now, and it's the suspense in it's pretty good considering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a low budget movie as well. I think that I think it was the first movie that Henry Thomas did after E.T. maybe.
And he was Quest too, right? He was the same.
Yeah. I think Quest was maybe a year. I get years mixed up, but I'm thinking Cloak and Dagger was like 84, 85, something like that. And the Quest was like, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Quest was 86, same year Fly the Navigator came out.
Yeah. Now I don't want to start talking more about Cloak and Dagger, but man, like
next show, we'll do that next show.
Just thinking about it now, I'm thinking of that almost like that twist at the end or whatever, or at the twist in the movie where I don't know, it's freaky, guys. It's I don't know if it was supposed to be for kids, but there's some scenes in it that you're like, wow. But yeah, so back to Navigator. I'm seeing people are chiming in right now. Wow. So Justin said he's never seen this movie. So that'll be cool, man. That'll be cool for sure. And then Chris V is in here and he said, I think this was Paul Rubin's only film he worked on or did between the two Pee-wee movies, which is something else we can kind of touch upon as well. His involvement with this.
Yeah. I mean, I really think that was interesting how they used him in the movie because he is basically the commander of the ship or whatever. He's the one that controls the spaceship. And at first it doesn't sound at all like Pee Wee Herman character or anything. And then it kind of slowly he gets into it, you can tell it's him. And I didn't realize this either, but he was not even credited with his real name or Pee Wee Herman or anything like that. I think it was in the movie. It was like Paul Mall or something like that.
Really? Yeah,
like the cigarette brand.
That's funny because, and I wasn't even sure that it was really him. I think I had to go back on IMDb and look because as a kid, Pee Wee at the time was all the rage. So you're like, oh my God, this guy's pretending he's Pee Wee, like the robot. Like I almost thought it was just like a rib or something, Like I didn't really think it was him. I thought it was somebody acting like him, basically.
Yeah, and then the director Randall Klieger did the Big Top Pee Wee movie. I don't know if you knew that. The same director.
Isn't that interesting? And there's another.
Yeah.
It's another weird. I guess it's almost like I'm kind of stretching, right? But as a kid, Pee Wee's Big Adventure being another movie that was on rotation at my house growing up, and that was the first time that I had seen Twisted Sister was in Pee Wee's Big Adventure. at the scene at the end where they're on the car singing "Burn in Hell." I don't know if you remember that. Where
Yeah, I remember that.
Pee-wee. But the first time I ever heard the name Twisted Sister was from Flight of the Navigator when Sarah Jessica Parker talked about it. So it's kind of weird that those two movies were like my first introduction to who Twisted Sister was. I heard the name from Flight of the Navigator, and I put a face with the name in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So yeah, I'm kind of pulling there, but it is kind of an interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I'm wondering like if the director just throws stuff in that he actually liked, because that's kind of interesting. He directed some interesting stuff too. He did the White Fang movie with Ethan Hawke. You remember that one?
I do remember that. Yes.
And Grease. That was, I guess, his most popular film that he directed. So.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but they actually talk about that in the documentary about Grease. And he actually, I think what he said was at the beginning when they're coming home from, which I want to get into in a second, when they're coming home for the first time, the song from Grease is playing in the car, and he did that as an homage or whatever. So yeah, that's what I want to kind of get into. I know we're jumping around, guys, but hopefully, everything we're saying gets you to kind of check this out. I know we got one person that said they were going to check it, but what is interesting is I will never forget the beginning of this movie. It's a cool beginning. It's different. It's just in my head, very 80s-esque. You got this, it almost looks like a flying saucer or a ship kind of going through the city. And you're thinking right away, like, oh, what's this little spaceship? And the music is really good at the beginning. It's a cool little hit that they kind of throw in there. It's a really cool jam. And then all of a sudden the ship's going, and then you see a dog jump up out of nowhere and like grab it. So in reality, that ship that you thought you saw was actually a frisbee being thrown. And then they get into this little montage thing at the beginning where they're doing the opening credits in like this like frisbee dog catching tournament or whatever. And it's actually pretty cool. And the song's really cool. And they get these like slow-mo shots of the dogs in midair, like catching the frisbee, which has nothing to do with this movie at all. But at the time, being a little kid, like I thought that dog frisbee was like a legit actual like professional sport, like that, based on just what I saw here in this movie, because it's such an odd thing to have, in a movie at all, like a dog frisbee tournament. And I can remember having a dog and throwing frisbees at it, being like, and it just stood there and stared at it. I'm like, why don't you catch this thing? I don't understand, and I always thought that opening with the song and the dogs, like I thought it was great, man.
Right. Yeah. And the music, Alan Silvestri's the guy that did it, and he's done all kinds of stuff. Back to the Future is probably one of his most famous ones as well. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it was made in 86. The time frame is set in 1978, and it's on July 4th. It all happens in one day. Wow.
Okay. That is crazy because they talk about that in the documentary, that they set it back. So then when they came into the current time, it would make sense. So it was technically that tournament was going on in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah. Part of it was in the 70s. Part of it was present day. Right. I always like the interaction too with the David character and the younger brother. What was his name? Jeff, I think.
Yeah. Did you like it when they were kids or when he was older?
When they were kids, insulting each other, because I can remember, and this lasted for years. I think the final insult, the little boy called him a scuzz bucket or something like that, right? And that was an insult that my mom would use playfully back in the day for years, probably up until I was in high school. She would like say, "Get in there and take a shower, you scuzz bucket."
So that's kind of
cool. That was taken from that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So she used to say that to you based on what was said in this movie, or was it just coincidence?
Yeah, she loved the little boy, the little actor that played Jeff. I don't know his name, but he was like not a typical Hollywood looking kid, right? He looked like a normal little nerdy kid, and she just loved that. She liked the movie quite a bit too. So, yeah,
they talk about him in the documentary, and I forget. And a part of me almost feels like he may have been someone that was kind of pulled off the side to do that character because it was such a small part. But I used to love that scene too, where they're fighting in the back seat, and then when David's trying to do something else, talk to the parents, and he's in the background like pretending to like punch him or whatever like that.
Right.
They had a great interaction, and again, that I don't know what it is, but the last time I watched it, like that scene of them driving home, it almost looks like they're kind of in the back of, like, to me it almost seems like there was like a dirt road, like they were like at a campground or something, and then Jeff got off and like went to his friend's house or whatever. That scene of them driving from the dog thing home, again, it's an eerie scene for me, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's one of those things where that's kind of the last time he's really going to see his brother, in a sense, at that age. I don't know what it is, but that scene of them driving home down those back roads before they drop the younger brother off is I always have a weird tone with that. And then it gets back to their house and things kind of are more brighter or whatever. But yeah, something about that scene of them just driving back to the house always kind of left something with me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because you knew what was to come, possibly. I mean, I don't know if it would be that way the first time you watch it. But yeah, I mean, later on that evening, I guess, it's 4th of July. So how this all comes about is the parents tell that David character to go get Jeff from the neighbors or whatever. And his dog,
Bruiser.
take his dog with him, Bruiser, yeah. So this is where the insanity begins, because he's walking through the woods, sees these lights in the woods or whatever, and he's like, "What is going on?" And ends up tripping and falling down a hill or something like that. And then when he gets up, I think he runs into the brother first, right?
Yeah, the brother like jumps
his brother
out.
scares him. Brother scares him.
So piggybacking on that. I'll never forget this, and this is what else is funny, and especially talking about a kids movie in the 80s, and now we're talking about it in 2020, and just how different things are. This movie now, I don't know what this was rated. Was this rated like PG or G? But now this would definitely not be. I think it would probably be PG-13 now. But even the one scene of him when he hears somebody in the woods, and I'll never forget this, he always said, "Get back, Jack, I got a gun," to try to scare whoever was in the woods away. And for a kid of 12 years old to yell out to somebody else that they've got a gun is just something that I feel like you would never hear in a movie nowadays, that a kid is telling somebody else that they've got a gun. Like, it just doesn't happen, right? So it was always a very funny or strange kind of line that he used, that he had a gun. And that's another thing, too, where you look at it and you're like, well, this is Disney? And it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, movies were way different back then, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot more that you could get away with, a lot more. Everybody wasn't offended at the drop of the hat like they are now, so. But yeah, I mean, he falls down a hill, tries to catch up with his brother, goes back to the house, and, that is when it hits the fan, if you will. So, but continue on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm glad we're kind of running through it. This, like he said, like when he gets back to the house after he fell, this is when I started having nightmares, going forward as a kid, because, he goes back to his house. I don't want to spoil everything, but basically it's not his house, and he's super confused, and and you're watching it, not sure what's going on, and then basically come to find out, it's 8 years later since the time he fell into that little ravine or whatever in the woods, and everybody in the world and everything in the world has progressed 8 years, and he's stayed 12 years old. So now it becomes, what the heck happened there? And he obviously doesn't know anything. He knows he fell, and he knows he woke up, and that's all he remembers. But everybody else is like, we all thought you were dead. You've been gone for 8 years. We've given up. We moved away. So it's crazy from there. And then it kind of just, the movie itself, I feel like the tone starts to change a little bit here once he ends up going to NASA and they're doing some tests on him. But we have a couple people chiming in right now. I just want to kind of read off a couple things and see if there's anything in here they want us to talk about. So let's see. So Justin says, speaking of eerie movies from my childhood, The Witches and Return to Oz were very eerie. Yeah, definitely. No doubt. No doubt.
Return to Oz was nuts.
Right. And that's another Disney movie, right? Like that was another Disney.
Was that a Disney movie? I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah, which is interesting because maybe I'm wrong, but it's a Disney movie. But at the same time, I had like an Anchor Bay DVD, right? So Anchor Bay put out Return to Oz and Disney put out Return to Oz. So I don't know if it was something they acquired later, but I don't know how that would be possible that Anchor Bay would be. I don't know. I have no idea. But I do know Disney had put Return to Oz out on Blu-ray, but it was a very limited edition. I wasn't able to catch it to get it.
I didn't have that one either.
Yeah. Disney does this thing, and I don't know if you have to be part of like a special Disney club, but they'll release like some of their movies on Blu-ray, very limited. Like for instance, I got the Boogity Man and Boogity Man 2 on Blu-ray from them, right? And I think the Black Hole and stuff, like they did put out a Blu-ray, but it's a very limited time only, and then it all skyrockets in price. So Justin said it was Disney that did Return to Oz.
Yeah, they have a Disney movie club, or they did, where they would offer exclusive items just on their website or whatever. So,
and then you got to go to eBay to get it. But Mike Overstreet's checking this out. He says, I need to see the film. I was born in 78, and as a kid, I saw this at the video store for years, but never rented it. I remember CK actually reviewing this once on Crappy Movie Reviews. I don't know if you remember that. Do you?
Yeah, the crappy movie reviews. Like what I would do is on that little series, I would just review movies that I kind of like that a lot of people didn't really talk about. So not necessarily crappy movies all the time, but sometimes. So that was a long time ago. That was probably 12 years ago at least.
You're a changed man. You were a lot harsher back then,
Yeah. No, but I'm pretty sure I put the movie over in that review as well. Like I said, it's been 12 years ago, but like I said earlier, that's one of those movies as a kid. There was a handful of them that I rented numerous times, and I can go through them. I mean, I want to make a video on it, like a video response to what you did. Yep. But a couple of the ones that you didn't mention on there would be The Princess Bride. That was one. Never-Ending Story was another one. Don't know. I would need to think some more, but I can't remember exactly the ones that you picked. But yeah, I mean, Fly the Navigator, though, I definitely always liked that movie.
Yeah, definitely. And it was funny because when I did make that video, I had stacks of movies. Like, I was looking through all my collection, being like, okay, this one. Then all of a sudden I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, this is like 30 movies here. I can't do this all day. Like, so I really started to narrow it down. Then I was like, okay, I've got to cut it down, like just 80s. So I like got rid of anything in the 90s. And there was some big titles from the 90s that I was like, oh man, I got to cut this one. I'm like, I'll do a 90s one. And then it left me with the 80s. And I had things like Never-Ending Story and stuff in there. And then I started to break it down and be like, okay, I'm going to go through the things that I owned. So again, we didn't own a lot of like VHS tapes that were bought, like for instance, from the store, but we did own a lot of VHS tapes of movies that my mom would record for us on from the TV. So we had a lot of those. And then we maybe had like a handful of ones that were actually bought. And I don't know if it was just because they were very pricey back then, but
another one popped in my head though, real quick. Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. I bet I rented that thing five or six times as a kid.
Which is funny because I didn't see that until way later in life either. So that's interesting because we're all at the same age. So, it's just funny to see what movies certain people were watching at that time and which ones just kind of, passed you by in a sense.
I think a lot of it with me is when we got a video, our first video store in town, they also sold VCRs, and that's where we got our first VCR back in the day. And the deal was, hey, you purchase a VCR here, you get one free movie rental a week for a year. So, and a lot of the stuff they carried in was it. It's a lot different back then. I think that they probably got better deals from like smaller studios like Canon or whoever. They had a lot of stuff like lower budget stuff, Missing in Action, Ninja 3, The Domination was another one, you know.
Funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of the stuff that I kind of missed, and we can go over this another time. But there's a big movie that I still have not seen to this day, and it's almost a running joke at this point that it's like I own it, I've never seen it, and everybody's like, "How have you never seen that?" And I'm like, it's almost at a point now where it's like I don't even want to watch it because I've already gone this far without seeing it, and we can get into that another day, or maybe we'll do some kind of like live viewing or something because there is something in that. And my brother's the same way. He's like, I've never seen it either. I'm like, yeah, it just never, for some reason, it just never came through. I don't know why. And people are listing off movies here right now. So 80s kids movie Explorers. Now that's another one I missed as a kid. I saw that later. Like I have that on DVD, but I didn't see that until like I was in my early 20s. Unless maybe I caught some of it on TV or something once, but that's another one I didn't see until later in life.
I saw it, but I didn't really connect that much with me. I mean, I like it and everything, but I would definitely pick Flight of the Navigator over Explorers.
Yeah. And then they say Little Monsters, which like Little Monsters was one I watched that a lot. I didn't own it in any format, but I rented it quite a bit. So that's another one that's definitely on.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. Highly underrated. I'm glad that they finally did a good release of that one too, because the DVD of that was, I think it was just in full frame or whatever, right? They didn't ever give it, proper treatment.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can go off the rant here, but, I want to make sure you get your video in, so I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a couple movies that I had rented as a kid. So one of the things we used to do growing up was I think like on a Sunday night or a Saturday night, like we had a thing where we'd go out to dinner Friday and Saturday. So it had to been a Friday or Saturday. We'd go out to dinner every Friday and Saturday. That was just the thing that we did, more or less. And I remember it was like every Saturday night or Friday night, one of the two, every few weeks we'd go to the video store. My mom would go in, leave us all in the car. She'd pick out something because she knew as soon as we go in there, we'll never pick something. We'll be looking around at everything, trying to make a decision. She would just grab something, and that would be the movie of the night, and we'd all watch it together. And it was always kid-related movies. And two of them that I can remember offhand that nobody really ever talks about. Well, this one they do now. It was Peanut Butter Solution. And I'm going to tell you, forever, before the internet or anything, I thought in my head that I dreamt that movie. Like
that's happened for a lot of people.
Like it was so obscure and so out there. And then it was like we rented it, watched it, and she returned it, and I had like never heard about it again. And I can remember when we got the internet for the first time, and I was into the DVD collecting. I remember typing in on Google like movie with peanut butter and
on balls. That's what I typed.
That's what I Googled, right? And that came up, and then other people were saying this movie does exist. And I can remember going to my mom and being like, I found the name, and that was, my introduction to that. And another one that I have on like a burned DVD was Purple People Eater. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, that was another
it's hard to explain. I don't even know if I've watched it in years. I have it, but I haven't probably put it in. And if I did, it's probably like VHS quality. But that was another one where my mom like randomly rented one day, and that was like what we ended up watching. And I don't know if that ever saw the light of day. And another one was Electric Dreams, which I'm surprised has not been released. It's another one that's not really talked about, but it's a pretty cool movie.
I was going to ask you about this movie the other night. Did you have HBO as a kid at all?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
There's a movie that HBO Films did that they played all the time back in the the late 80s, early 90s called Fortress. And it's not the one with Christopher Lambert. It's the one with Rachel Ward, she was in one of those crappy early 80s slasher movies, right? But the story, I think it's set in Australia. Have you ever seen this movie, Garrett?
Okay, so I think so. And I mean, I can go check right now. I almost believe I have it on DVD. And the reason I say that is because my friend Rich, for the longest time, when he knew I was really into like buying movies and watching new stuff, he's like, you got to see this movie Fortress. And I bought it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this one? He's like, no, not that one. Love it, that one.
That's what everybody. Yeah, as soon as you say Fortress, and I think I was talking to Felcher about it because it's just got a crappy HBO DVD. Like that would be a great one for a Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or somebody to get a hold of, because it's got a creepy. It's a creepy vibe throughout the whole movie too.
Yeah, I don't know. I have two movies called Fortress. One's a blue cover, and then the other one is like a tan cover. It almost looks like it has like gun shells. Like
that's it. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, so it's been, man, I probably watched it once, and I don't think the quality on the DVD is really good. So it might have been one of those ones that I was like half paying attention to. I remember thinking about it, like, was it like about kids and like a woman or something like that? Like,
yeah, it's a school. Rachel Ward's a school teacher in like rural Australia, and a bunch of kidnappers they have like latex masks of ex-presidents, and they come in there and kidnap the teacher and all the kids, and it's just really messed up, especially if you were a kid back in the 80s watching that, because it was just very unusual. But yeah, it's an HBO movie, I believe. So the odds, I mean, hopefully somebody can get the rights to it or something, because we've talked about for, ever. HBO also owns The Hitcher, and they've never come out with The Hitcher on anything except the old Snapcase DVD from like 20 years ago.
I hate Snapcase DVDs. I'll sometimes buy a movie, like I'll upgrade just so I can chuck the Snapcase away, or just so I can put it away, because I hate seeing it on the shelf. It's really weird. I don't know what it is about those, but as the Fortress DVD, is that like very hard to come by now? Do you know, or?
No, I was looking it up. I actually don't own it. I was thinking about grabbing it. It's not very much. I think it's like $10 or something on eBay. It is out of print, I believe. I don't think you can get it new anymore. But yeah, that's a movie that HBO played to death back in the day, and I'd seen it numerous times, and it always kind of stuck with me as well. It's got some creepy visuals in it, and that's kind of an underrated one that nobody mentions.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, I watched it once. I remember like bits and pieces of it, but nothing to talk about it. So it might have to be one that I'll definitely go back and check out. We got comments coming in through here. So It Crept from the 80s says, Garrett, I'd love to have you on my show over on Crept from the 80s. And Dead Pit, it's been a long time since I've seen you, man. Used to dig some of my flicks back in the day. So thanks for checking this out, man. Shoot me a message, okay? Probably the best way to get a hold of me would be like Instagram Messenger, if you have that. If not, hit me up, however.
Yeah.
So we continue to rant off, and you guys can give us something to talk about, or we can get back to The Navigator. Sarah Jessica Parker, man, what can I say?
That's the first movie I remember her.
Me too.
That's the first time I remember seeing her in anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same with me. And it was one of those things where when I saw her again, I'm like, I know this person, but I couldn't put a finger on where I knew her from. And it was this movie. So
you also have Veronica Cartwright, who was kind of a child actor, and then a lot of people know her from Alien. That she had a big role in that movie, the Ridley Scott movie. She's the mother in this. So I knew I recognized her, but I couldn't, I had to look it up. But yeah, she's still acting and stuff. Yeah.
I didn't realize that until you just said it. And then I'm like, that is her from Alien.
And like, I didn't realize this either, but she was, I don't know if you ever watched Leave It to Beaver. I watched reruns back in the day.
No.
She was one of the, I don't know if it was Beaver's love interest. I can't remember, but a regular character on that show, Violet Rutherford. I remember the name from the show. So yeah, she's been a child. I mean, since she was that was back in the 50s. So she was a young kid at that point. I know you remember the guy that played the older version of Jeff, right? He's in one of your favorites. Dude,
you know what? I look at him and for one, he dresses badass, number one. So
you like his fashion sense.
He's got a good fashion. Now, dude, you know what's funny is even when I saw the documentary and they show him now, I'm like, I know this guy. And at the time, I don't think I put two and two together. And now it's going through my head, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, what? dude, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on where this guy. Who is this guy? I know him, but I can't picture of where.
Teen Wolf.
Oh, was he the friend?
Yeah, he was one of his buddies in Teen Wolf. He was in.
Oh my god!
He was also in Whitewater Summer. He was one of the other campers
really?
in Whitewater Summer.
You know what? I can't believe I didn't put two and two together. Yeah, he's in Teen Wolf. His name is
And he was in another one, man, that you should know. Dream a Little Dream.
Jesus, yeah,
he was the other buddy. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, you are killing me in here today. You'll put me to shame right now.
I didn't know that it was Chris Seaver in the chat, by the way. He's actually got some really entertaining movies.
Does he?
Yeah. Destruction Kings. I still own it over there. It's still over there somewhere. It's almost like a spoof of the Monster Squad before anybody really ever talked about the Monster Squad. Right? There was a time frame there where you were hardcore if you knew what the Monster Squad was.
Well, that's another one. I did not see the Monster Squad until I was older. I didn't see that as a kid. I was I can remember being working at that grocery store and, big into horror movies, and everybody kind of knew it. And this kid that worked there who was older than me said, well, you must have the Monster Squad, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, what? And then I found it. And then I think I found the VHS first because I don't think it was even on DVD at that point. And then when the DVD came out, I snagged it like the first day. I think the first day it was released. But yeah, I didn't see the Monster Squad until I was probably in my early 20s.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like when we started doing the Dead Pit show, 2005, 2006, very rarely would anybody even mention the Monster Squad. And then the DVD, I think they talk about it in that documentary a little bit. Have you seen the Wolfman Got Nards documentary or whatever? So the DVD, when it initially got released, I think it was in 2007, that shit just exploded, man, because like people, I don't know if they just had never heard about the movie or it was kind of hard to track down. I remember a Japanese laser disc was like $150, $200 on eBay, right? So it probably wasn't the easiest movie to see. And if you weren't a child of the 80s, like I remember Video Store, New World Video in Prestonsburg was like the video store back in the day. They had the biggest horror selection you could, in the whole area. And I'd seen the Monster Squad. I'd rented it there a couple of times. And then every time I went back in there afterwards, it was rented. In a video store, for everybody that is not old enough to remember this, they would have the videotape right behind the box. Usually that's how it was set up. So I eventually asked him, I was like, what, can you just save the Monster Squad for me when it comes back in? And the clerk was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody stole that tape and it didn't bring it back.
Well, that's why it was never there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to track down, man, back in the day, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that is interesting. That you said that it went through a lull period when nobody really talked about it. And again, I wouldn't have known because I didn't really know about it until when I was in my early 20s. I mean, and so to me, it was always like, as soon as I found out about it, I felt the DVD was not too far behind after I kind of learned about it. And
when you were growing up though, did you have, was it Blockbuster in the area or did you have like a mom and pop video store?
Yeah, we didn't have any mom and pop shops. We had what it was called at the time was Major Video. That's what it was called growing up. We had like two on either end of town, and then they converted both into Blockbusters as I got older. So it was Major Video at first, and then Blockbuster kind of came around after that. But what is interesting too is that my mother worked in a pharmacy. And sometimes as a kid, I would go in there and like, if she had to go in for a minute or like, I don't know. I just remember being in there. And the two places I'd always go is like to the magazines and read all like the wrestling magazines and stuff like that. Or I'd go hang out and they had like this, they just had a ton of VHS tapes that you could like, they were in these things where you'd spin them and they would be like, and you could spin the things around and it'd be all these tapes. And I remember renting some of the tapes from there. I think they like rented them. And one of the ones I rented at the time was Teen Wolf 2 because I was such a big fan of Teen Wolf that's where I ended up renting it. But I don't know if like a place like that would have had more obscure titles than like a big chain place. I don't know.
What do you think of Teen Wolf 2, by the way? I don't know if I ever asked you that.
it's it's like it's hard to say because there's parts like you can tell the budget was a lot less than it was in the original one. I thought it was okay. I don't think the wolf didn't look good compared to the first one. There's just some memorable scenes in it. Like it was just as a kid, I loved it because I would just love Teen Wolf. As an adult, no, I mean it's cheesy. I mean I like Send Me an Angel. They got that as a montage video. I mean that's always.
I remember. Isn't almost half of the movie a montage though? Like I remember a lot of music and like montages throughout the movie.
Yeah,
and it's a short movie too. It's not a very long movie.
And I like that Chubby was in it, you know. And what I didn't like is I hate when they have a same character but a different person playing him. Like so, Styles really pissed me off in that one because it was a different kid, and that always bothered me, especially as a kid. Like it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that it was a different kid playing the same role that we all knew. But yeah, I have the one sheet poster of it just to have it. I have it on Blu-ray, but yeah, I mean, you can't even compare it, you know.
No, it's a hard watch. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember the DVD had both. It was like a double feature DVD, and that's how because I don't know if I would buy it by itself.
Piz is in the house. What's up, dude?
Piz away.
Yeah, Piz. Piz says hashtag not my styles. Yeah, definitely not. So
back to Flight of the Navigator, though. Yeah, I did have one thing before I forget about it. Right. So I was showing off the VHS artwork, right? Mm-hmm. I was thinking, well, this is all that Disney has ever done as far as home video. Not quite. Look at this. Now, I just noticed this. Bam.
That is interesting. I have that DVD, right? But like, yeah, like why would they
change the shirt?
Yeah, why would they do that?
And they reversed it's on reverse or whatever. It's weird. He
doesn't wear a red shirt in it, right?
No, he's got this outfit on pretty much the entire movie.
That is weird because I own that. I don't own the VHS, but I own the DVD, and I never knew that those were different. I had no idea.
The only thing I can think is they were thinking the artist was like, oh, there's so much blue on this cover. Right. Let's make let's put a red polo on him and make it pop. That'll really make a difference.
Again, it's rewriting history.
Yeah, I thought I was just looking at it. I never really paid much attention to that, but yeah.
I'm trying to see what you've got on in this but yeah, so guys, we want to just kind of chat about that movie now. We kind of chat about him getting tests done because he was lost and not sure exactly where he was. And then basically you come to find out that randomly they found a spaceship around the same period of time. And, you know, put two and two together, they were kind of linked. And then it gets into a little bit more of a fun movie. The depressed portion of it is kind of out. And then it kind of gets into this nice, adventure flick with the kid and the spaceship and who's controlling it and all that stuff. So it kind of gets a little bit fun here where they're playing jokes on people and, you know, you get some upbeat music and they start introducing like little monsters and stuff like that into the movie here. So Beach Boys was always one of the songs I remember as a kid, that whole scene where he was singing along to that. That was a big one for me as a kid. That's where I first heard that song, actually.
Yeah, I do remember that as well. And the spaceship I thought as a kid was really cool looking. I think I'd heard that it was the inside of it was made entirely out of aluminum. So I could only imagine, how heavy that damn thing was putting together. But like, I don't know if you heard, they're probably talking about that in the documentary, which it's on Amazon Prime. It was, we're going to be doing a review of that at some point here too. But the ship was one of the first things I think that was CGI, like it's early CGI imaging or whatever. For 86, you would think that would not be possible, but yeah, it was all CG.
And it kind of, they talk about that it was kind of revolutionary in a way because what they wanted to do with the ship is make it chrome because when it was flying, they were able to do this effect where if it was chrome, they could almost make it mirror objects. So like while it's over the water, as you see the ship going, you can see the reflection of the water underneath. So they wanted to do something like that. And what they said was James Cameron actually took that idea when he did Terminator 2 with the T-1000 and had him all that liquid metal. He got a lot of the ideas from the ship in Flight of the Navigator, they said. And so which is pretty cool that it was so ahead of its time. And like he said, another cool thing is the ship inside was like all chrome, right? Like it had that look. It just looked very futuristic, and it just had a real cool look to it as well. And that seat that he was in and all the electronic stuff, like it was very believable, especially as a kid, that this was a futuristic ship and stuff like that.
And then I don't know what was his name, Max, I guess, the character that was, Paul Rubens played, is almost like a lamp or something that you can move around, and it had a light at the end of it. So that was cool too. That they didn't really have anything exactly like that around that time frame too. And then this is a lot of the stuff like in the 80s that was kind of typical, like the creatures you mentioned and all that. And I don't know what the little finger puppet thing was, but that one made the cover of the poster and the DVD and all that.
That was the one that they were hoping to sell some toys or something,
Yeah, but I mean, basically, once he takes flight, the flight of the Navigator, it moves at the speed of light, right? So he can go from here to Tokyo like that or whatever, and so that's fun. I mean, it kind of an adventure movie at that point, because all he wants to do is he just wants to go back home, so it's fun.
Too is because it moves at the speed of light. He's going to all these places, like you said, at a snap of the finger. But then all of a sudden, when it's time to go home, it feels like it takes them quite a while to get there. Like,
I was kind of wondering about that, because wouldn't you just go home? Who wants, I guess the kid he was like, oh, let's go to Tokyo for a couple minutes,
Yeah, and it's like, all right, now and then he gets to Tokyo like this, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's time to go home, and they're showing what they're doing at the house, like setting up for him to come back, and then they show them like going. So it's kind of like, it starts getting you on your toes about what's going to happen when he gets there. And it's like, dude, that thing should have been there in like a snap of a finger. Like, why are we going through this whole little travel for him to get there? But one thing that I always found interesting as a kid, such a weird thing, is when he asks Max to pull over because he needs to go to the bathroom, and then he leaves the ship and he's peeing like in the grass. And then Max like comes out and is like watching him. And then he kind of turns around. He's like, do you mind? Like, it's just one of those weird scenes that you got like this alien thing, like just watching this kid urinate, like this 12-year-old kid, like in the bushes or whatever. But again, it just must be one of those sign of the times thing. But that always kind of made me laugh, because the way the kid says it too, he kind of has like this giggle smirk, like when he says it to him.
Another one that kind of popped into my head that's a little similar to this, but it's different at the same time, is Short Circuit. That's another one from around that time, that same time frame.
They talk about that in the documentary, that might have been one of the creators of this movie or the creators of maybe the ship. I don't know, but somebody has to do with Short Circuit. Maybe it was the voice. Maybe one of the guys did the voice for Johnny Five or something like that. But there is some connection between the people who did this movie and Short Circuit, because they do actually talk about that in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like one of the production designers or something like that too, because they kind of have a similar feel as well. I mean, they were made around the same time too. So
that's another one I would rewatch. I have not watched that in a long time. Neither.
I just recently got the Blu-ray of that, which is not easy to track down.
It isn't. I have the original on Blu-ray, but I have the second one on DVD. So I don't know. Is the second one out on Blu-ray? Do you have it? Do you know?
I actually have an extra copy of the second one on Blu-ray.
Do you know?
Might be your lucky day. No, because I bought somebody on Mercari had a 2-pack of 1 and 2 together. So I mean, technically, I've got 2 copies now. So yeah, we'll work out a trade or something maybe. I like both of those movies though.
Yeah, they are. They're both really good. It's another one. Yeah, like I said, I really need to go back and check out. It's funny. I know we keep veering off here, but another movie that, as a kid, that I watched quite a bit, that I probably have not seen since I was a kid, is what's that other one there where there's like the janitor guy was like a boxer, and there's like these little batteries not included. Remember that one?
Yep.
That's another one that I used to watch a lot as a kid, but I haven't probably seen that in. I have the DVD. If it's upgraded on Blu-ray, I don't know. I don't own that, but I probably have not watched that in 20 years, maybe.
I watched that probably 6 months ago for some reason. I think it was on one of those movie channels or something. It's kind of another unusual movie, you know. I mean, I think that was a Hollywood movie though, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know.
It was like it was like an old folks home or something, wasn't it? And like these little robots. Like I just remember it almost being like there was spaceships in like the movie Cocoon or something. Like, right. It was a very weird vibe.
Yeah, and I remember Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy have like a restaurant in it, and they're being forced out or something like that. And then the aliens come in to help them fix it up and stuff.
But you know what, though? It's crazy because as weird as a lot of these movies are, I mean, dude, you can at least say they're charming and original where, you know, it's still like to these things like, why? Does nobody have any original ideas anymore? Like, as weird as the ideas are, for some reason, they still work. Like, I'm sure as weird as Short Circuit would be now, I still think I could go back and watch it, and it probably seems like an overall pretty good movie.
I think the big problem is, like we were talking about earlier, is people are so easily offended at anything anymore, right? So, I mean, because I was kind of surprised in Flight of the Navigator that it was NASA that wanted to study this kid, right? And which is a real, yeah. And I was like, are they saying they are NASA? That's kind of odd because today that would never fly.
Yeah,
not going to happen. No.
That was always the thing. Yeah, it was. It's crazy that, like you said, like it wasn't just you know, these doctors or something. Like it was legit. Like, hey, we're NASA, right?
Yeah, they give the kid the NASA cap.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. And that was the first time I heard about NASA as a kid, you know, too. That was probably the first time. I think it's gotten a lot bigger since then or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, evidently, because I'm thinking, yeah, that never happened now. Like they,
now. Well, okay. And again, I don't want to keep moving on, but you know that movie Space Camp? Is that NASA or no?
Space Camp? I don't know. I would think maybe.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of a big movie when it came out, you know.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if that was NASA or if it was just like a school or something, you know.
I'm not 100%. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
But yeah, so basically, guys, like we want to just run this down, and he ends up, I don't want to spoil any more, but we gave you the gist of what goes on here, and it's just got a lot of good characters in it. It's definitely got a creepy vibe, like we talked about, very a weird tone to it, but...
Well, it's really like two separate movies, too. Like the first half of it's kind of creepy and Twilight Zone-ish or whatever.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it, Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and the second half is like just a fun 80s adventure kids movie, kind of.
That was perfectly said, man, for sure. And that's really what it is. It's like as soon as he gets into that ship, everything changes, right? As soon as he gets out of like the NASA he's like locked there. And that's another thing too. They're like locking him in his room. Like NASA almost comes off evil in a way. Like they're holding this hostage, you know.
There's a robot in the movie too. We can't forget. What was Ralph the robot, right?
Yeah, and you know what else too? I don't know if you caught it, but there's some pretty cool toys that they had in his room there. I think they had some Transformers.
G.I. Joe, the water moccasin thing, I think, or whatever.
He got hooked up over there.
Yeah. A speak and spell too, man. Like I've been looking for a speak and spell at the Goodwill for probably 5 years.
Do you know where you get? I bought it for my son recently. You know where they are? Target.
Yeah, but I want the old school ones.
It's like okay. This is honestly, it's a replica. It's not. There's no difference. It's just repackaged and it says like, you know, toys of the '80s, and they just repackaged a bunch of this stuff. So it's the actual one. No, there's no difference at all, except for the fact that maybe the date on it underneath might be different, but it's not like they revamped it and made like, for instance, I don't know if you remember this, but as a kid, one of the toys that I used to play with a lot was this thing called Alfie, which like it was like this little robot that you could like play games on and stuff.
Dude, I completely forgot about Alfie until just now. I had Alfie as well.
You remember that thing, right? And I almost feel that like if
Holy, yeah.
I have not heard, like, seen that in for so long. Like, it's one of those things where if I could find one that worked, I bet when I hit those buttons, it's going to be like, it's just going to open my brain up to like so much, because I can almost remember some of the little tones that thing would make. And people have re-released Alfie throughout the years, but it was always like upgraded versions, and now it has a holographic face, and now it's this. But this Speak and Spell is literally the exact, no difference than the one that we had as kids.
That's pretty cool. If you can still type out cuss words and it works, I'll get it. That's why I wanted it.
I'll try.
I used to do that as a kid.
I'll try it, but I haven't used it too much. But it's it's the same thing. It's just funny to hear that voice. It's like,
right.
It's mind blowing. It's one of those things too where it's like, it's another thing where it's kind of like that voice is kind of creepy in a sense.
Do you ever go back and think, like, how many products did they sell in ET? Like, there was a debut of Reese's Pieces as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
that's
every kid wanted Reese's Pieces after that.
Definitely. I mean, that was the thing back then. Think about all these other product placement movies like that. And I even talked about Mac and Me the other day, which was basically just a commercial for McDonald's and Coke or whatever it was, or Pepsi or whatever was the drink. I think it was Coke. And that's all it was. If you look at that movie, you're like, oh my God, they're just selling me everything right now.
Mm-hmm. I was watching some of those Mexican horror movies from Vinegar Syndrome, right? They've got like Pepsi free. In one movie has Pepsi free everywhere, right? The other movie, it's Coca-Cola everywhere. So I guess they changed sponsorship. It's the same director, right? Yeah. But it's everywhere in the background, Coca-Cola or Pepsi free.
That is too funny. So hold on. Chris V says, Amiglio the robot was cool too. I don't know what that is. Do you?
No.
Maybe that was that might have been before our time. I don't know. But yeah, Alfie's going to be the next thing. We're going to track that bad boy down.
Yeah, like I said, I had Alfie, but I totally forgot about it until you mentioned it. But yeah, that was one of the.
Your brain opens up to like these things that you thought were lost forever.
Right.
All right, gang. So unless you have anything else to kind of add to it, Wes, guys, if you have any questions that you want us to talk about, again, we kind of went off the rails a little bit, but that's what I like about this. It's a spur of the moment kind of chit chatting about the movie, getting you guys to either rewatch this thing and maybe it'll give you a new look at it. Maybe it's something you've never seen before or you haven't seen since you were a kid. So I like to do these videos and we can kind of get you guys to give this thing a little bit new life, especially now that documentary is free on Amazon Prime called Life After Navigator. And it's pretty interesting because there's a lot in there that I had no idea about, especially when it comes to the main actor here. I think Wes knew a lot of this stuff, but I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know where that kid went to.
I had heard stories that he had, issues with substance abuse and he had odd jobs here and there. But yeah, I mean, when I saw the preview for that documentary, I haven't watched it yet. You've seen it, but it is on Amazon Prime for free. As long as you've got the Prime subscription, you can check it out. So, also the movie Flight of the Navigator is on Disney Plus, if you guys didn't know. So they got a really good transfer of the movie on there too. So I know a lot of Disney Plus stuff is in 4K. I watched the movie on my phone, so I can't vouch for that. But yeah, it's a good looking transfer from what I could tell.
So basically you're telling me you watched this movie at work.
Yeah. That's how I do it, man.
You're like, I got a show.
Because the way I think, my wife's not she likes movies and stuff, but she'll watch crap like 50 Shades of Grey and Sweet Home Alabama and bullshit like that. Whereas, I like actual movies. So I can get away with 1 or 2 movies a week with her, and then the rest of them I have to watch at work.
Right.
Just how it goes.
That's how life is now, man, But hey, thank you guys for popping in here. We've been on this for about an hour now. So again, we didn't want to spoil too much. We wanted just to kind of get you guys to check this out if you haven't. I know a couple people in here haven't, which is awesome because that's what this is about. And like he said, keep your eyes out on his YouTube page over at deadpit.com. Because we will do a review of the documentary as well coming up really soon. And there's always stuff that we're working on kind of between both shows and stuff like that. content and all that. So, Wes, if you want to sign us off here, man, and just tell everybody who maybe doesn't know you where they can find you.
You just Google Dead Pits. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. So anybody's listening to movie podcasts and stuff, this guy was doing it before, I would say before I knew what a podcast was, right?
Yeah, podcasts really, I mean, if it was a word, I wasn't familiar with it. So we stole the concept from live audio wrestling up in Canada. Now it was an internet radio show, terrestrial radio show, actually, I think too. So that's where the Dead Pit idea originated back in 2005. It's crazy. It was 16 years ago.
I mean, I had to have, I don't know where I originally found you guys. But I mean, I've been listening. When did you guys start?
First show was December of 05.
Wow.
And we did them pretty much every week starting like in early 06 for like 10
So
years.
I would probably say I started probably listening, I'm going to say maybe it was before I got married. I got married in 09. So that's how much I remember. But yeah, man, these guys were the OGs in that world. So make sure they have so much content, guys. Make sure you go check his stuff out. They've got content for days over there. Good stuff. And if you're just checking this out on the replay, shoot us a message or type into the comments, guys, about this movie and what you remember or if you've ever seen it. And let us know, and hopefully we can help you guys out resurface this thing. Like I said, it is on Blu-ray 4K transfer, Second Sight Films, but I don't know if this is still available or not. It could be. I would check their site. It's region free, so if it's there, it's definitely worth a pickup.
Yeah, I would say that's the only Blu-ray release you're going to get because Disney's not really doing it anymore hardly. It's all the Disney Plus stuff here in the U.S., so Second Sight's awesome.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you guys so much for checking this out. We appreciate it. And Wes, thanks a lot, man, for joining me this evening.
No problem at all. Anytime, brother.
All right, guy. We'll talk. Peace.